I'm here in Bangkok at the Victory Monument with a specific goal, kind of. It's one of this area here is used to be, well, there used to be huge traffic jams all the time here because about 7 or odd years ago, the minivans would leave from here down to Hua Hin and places like that. But they moved all of that out now, so it's a bit better, but still quite a number of buses just stop here. The train over there, the BTS train line that goes, so you kind of, if you're in the train, you always like go around the monument, so it's a way to see the monument without really stopping here or anything like that, or you can take buses and then come and stop all over the place here and walk around. But you can't really get into the monument, understandably, because of the road is very busy and everything is like closed off. But right, so the reason I'm recording the next few verses here is because it's a victory monument, right? Victory over in war. These verses here in Exodus has to do with, well, ultimately God going to be victorious against the Egyptians, right? But not the act as in itself yet, okay? But just the telling to Moses of what is going to happen, right? What he needs to do. So there's not going to be a war against the Egyptians, right? God is going to fight the war because the people themselves could not fight against them. Understand that this we were still going to see because they were enslaved. Because they did not have the expertise to fight a war. Okay, that is to ask a group of street sweepers to go and fight against the American army, kind of, right? Kind of idea, because there's a superpower of the day, and these are people who are just slaves. They could not really do anything. They had no knowledge of warfare. Okay, so but in the end they're going to be victorious. Why? Because God said that He heard them and they will be victorious. Now see, for us as humans, when we fight wars, we never know if we're going to be victorious in that war or not. And there are wars all over the world going on at the moment. There's like so few places actually in the world where there's not a war going on, which is very sad, right? But when people fight wars, they never know if they're going to win or if they're going to lose. It's kind of, we fight, we do our best, and then we see where it will end up. After the war, if you've won, then you put up a monument, right, to celebrate your victory. There in St. Petersburg, so many of these, like the Arc de Triomphe in Paris, to commemorate all their different victories. I mean, other victory monuments as well. Okay, all over the world, victory monuments. But the victory monument is not put up before; it's put up after the fact. And if you lose a war, well, people actually do put up monuments for that as well, to be reminded of, the effects of war and so. But you put up a lot less memorials like that than in case of winning a war, okay, or so. So in this case, yes, it's basically then the reason I'm kind of standing here, because when it gets to God, right, there's a difference, okay. God is going to win, even though the war is not started yet. Okay, it's a given, it's a fact, and that is the difference between when God says something and when we hope we will win. We start a war, we hope for the best, we plan, understandably, and if we win, we put up a monument. But in this chapter, where God is saying, it's a fact. You are going to come to this mountain to worship me. That's going to be a sign. So the monument's already put up, although there was not even a war yet. Because victory is certain. Why? Because God is who God is, ultimately. Okay, so this is what we've seen actually in verse 14, when God gave His name as I am. So let's go and continue then with verse 15. So it's Exodus chapter 3, verse 15. God also said to Moses, say this to the people of Israel, the Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abram, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob has sent me to you. this is my name forever, and thus I am to be remembered throughout all generations. Okay, so I already mentioned it, and it happened earlier in the chapter as well. God calling himself the God of Abraham, Isaac, etc., right? Jacob. Because we've seen that they've forgotten. These people were forgotten already. And now God is, by again saying that he is their God, he's showing, and you can go and watch those videos, he's showing that he's not a God of the dead. Jesus is going to use that later on in his discussions with the Sadducees, who didn't believe in resurrection from the dead, because God's not a father of the dead. But at the same time, for these people, that's a long time in the future. But for these people here now, for the Jews in the desert hearing this for the first time, for them hearing it then from the mouth of Moses while they're still under, to be reminded that even though Pharaoh forgot, God didn't forget. For them, they are still a fact, that they are alive even though they are dead. Even though Pharaoh forgot about them, God didn't forget about them, right? That is the important part that we can take from this verse. So they need Moses in telling them that God is the God of these forefathers, is to show that although Pharaoh forgot, God didn't, right? Although they felt as if God forgot, no, God did not. And so yes, the name forever as well. So the whole idea of the I am, the name, that is the name they're going to use, right? Moses is going to use it retroactively in things that happened before this because of that, and they ought to remember. Now, the sad fact of the matter is that they ought to, but they forgot. Because they worship so many unlikely other gods. Not all. There's always a remnant of alive. But this is the name of God. This is ultimately then the most important name of God. And you can go and listen to my discussion concerning this chapter, chapter 3 that is, and verse 14 and especially verse 15. The meaning of all of this. Verse 16. Yeah, well, I just want to say still about in the generation. So at the same time, it's kind of a good sign that they ought to remember it throughout the generations that this is eternal God is with them. Okay? Now, yeah, I'm not going to speak about what they call replacement theology, which is a misnomer. There's no replacement theology. There is just an enhancement. I would call it maybe enhancement theology, where the two branches Jesus speaking about, I have sheep in other fold as well, the Jews and the Gentiles, bringing it all together. I think there's just an enhancement in that sense, a fulfillment than a replacement theology, a fulfillment theology rather than a replacement theology, which, like I said, is a misnomer. They like to speak about against Reformed people, like they have replacement, God doesn't care about Israel, as if God doesn't care about Israel anymore. The Jews, that is, the physical Israelites, and that's kind of what we're teaching. That's nonsense. You look at my videos in John, you see I plead the whole time with the Israelis and the Israelites, the Jews of today, right, to accept the Messiah at last. Yeah, so that's just a straw man. It's nonsense. That's not what we. But then again, we say lots of things about Roman Catholics and Orthodox, which actually is well straw man. So we need to listen a little bit more to each other and to see what we really believe. Yeah, so it's not replacement. So it's fulfillment. This is the people, and there's a promise. So there's generations. There's a promise, and ultimately, this is not just for now and when they're all dying out there in the desert, struggling in the desert. A reminder of that this is not the end. There is going to be generations. They will continue because God. This is God's name. God doesn't change, and this is who God is. Okay, so, but that does not mean that there's only one true blood DNA people on this planet that belongs to God. That's nonsense, right? All people who believes in Jesus belongs to God, children of God, be they a Jew or be they a Thai or South African or Burmese or wherever they are. If they believe in Jesus, they are a child of God, and this is their name, the name of God for them as well, not just. So that's again fulfillment theology, right? Verse 16. Go and gather the elders of Israel together and say to them, the Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abram, of Isaac, and of Jacob, has appeared to me, saying, I've observed you and what has been done to you in Egypt. Okay, so again, go to the elders. So God said it before, now God says it again. Go to them, gather all the elders together, right? Not just you, but gather the elders together and tell them, again, my name, the God of fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, sending you. And he appeared to me, that is Moses, in the desert. And he is saying that I observed everything that happened to you. All of this that happened to you, I observed. I understand this, right? And so it's not as if I didn't see this. Not that it's outside my scope of what I've seen or not seen. And so they felt as if God forgot about them, like Noah earlier on the ark, kind of like they hear, but God observed everything, and he saw what's been done, and God's not going to leave it alone.